Being a social worker, I think it's just ingrained in me to give back. That's just our nature. Any social worker will tell you that that's just who we are. I'm not very good at saying no to things, which is sometimes what gets me in trouble and kind of biting off more than I can chew. So I don't know that I consider myself a good leader, but I think if I'm passionate about something, I don't like to take things on that it doesn't really mean something to me.
One of the things that I think is really interesting about Erin is that she and John have not lived here forever. And a lot of the times the St. Louis community, as we know, people care where you went to high school. They want to know who your grandparents were and, what country club they belong to. But Erin and John somehow have managed to be able to make their place here and become a part of this community.
Through the Federation, I have been on the board of Women's Philanthropy. This is my second term. I've also been on the board, a TI, nearing the end of my first 3-year term. This is my second year that I'm in charge of the Pies for a Purpose. We bake about 500 pies that we give to the Harvey Kornblum Food Pantry, and then we also have some pies that we bake for the Thanksgiving dinner that Temple Israel puts on every year for members of the community on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. 2 years ago, when the Maccabi Games came to St. Louis, I was approached to be the volunteer co-chair, and I had no idea how much time that would take and how big of a job it was. And so it really took about a year of my life, but it was wonderful, and I made a lot of friends that way. I met people that I probably wouldn't have otherwise.
Erin started this business a few years ago where she works with people who are either about to experience a death in their family or they've just experienced a death. And what people don't realize is that when someone dies, there's a lot of things to think about, and trying to know who do you call and what are the forms you have to fill out, what do you have to do, is so overwhelming for people at a time in their lives where they are already overwhelmed. It's not only a brilliant idea, but it is so needed.
I would describe a good leader as someone who has compassion, wisdom, and foresight. Erin has all of those qualities.
She seems to have her hands in almost every successful project that we've seen in the past few years in this community. It's incredible.
It's hard to put Eli into a few short words or a box because he resided in so many boxes. He was not about titles. He was not about awards. It took me a lot to get him to allow me to nominate him for this award, to be honest.
I've told a lot of people it's embarrassing that I won this award before Eli did, because he's one of the reasons why I became a leader.
Eli was just like a big ball of warmth, and he just kind of wanted to be in his orbit. I took him to a formal freshman year, and I love that picture. I think we didn't age at all. I think we look exactly the same, and that's how I always want to remember him.
Eli's opinion was as good as gold. If Eli was willing to put his name behind you, that gave you a lot of clout. I think his whole life was brought on by the Jewish community. Back to his grandma, Ilsa, who would speak at our leadership classes. For a lot of people, it would be their aha moment. He learned very early on through camp, multiple Jewish camps, and college, where he had an incredible group of friends, how to become not only a friend, but I think when people value your opinion and trust your judgment, they become leaders. And the best thing about having a leader that's a great guy is that other people want to rally around him.
So I first met Eli, I think when I came to the J. He had been chair of the Camp Sabra committee and quickly rose to the level of board and executive committee. I can tell you at the J, he was instrumental in so much of the good that's happened here in the last decade or so. He was our treasurer, he was chair of the audit committee. He never shied away from a challenge, and he always came up with new ideas. So when we hosted the Maccabi Games a little over 2 years ago, he was on the security committee, and in fact, I think he chaired security for our home base, Maryville University.
He did the security and really just embraced it. He had his walkie and his whole get-up, and both he and his wife Stacy were just such important members of that whole experience.
One of the biggest takeaways for me and for a lot of other people is that we'd all be a little better off if we were just a little more like Eli. Knowing that it's a huge loss makes me want to do more. I mean, what better way to honor him than carry his legacy on?
We're going to miss Eli a lot in ways that I think many of us can't even comprehend just yet. Personally, I'm going to miss a dear and trusted friend, But from a community perspective, we're going to miss his wisdom, we're going to miss his commitment, we're going to miss his can-do attitude, and his friendship.